Well, hello, this is a review of the article, The Neuropsychology of Change and the Refusal of the Masses. What I'm going to look at is I'm going to look at the concept of changing habits and creating habits, and I'll look at this from a psychological perspective as well as a scientific perspective. It'll be short, and I think it'll be very meaningful. Anyway, I'll make sure that I send you the article, even though you should already have it, but just in case you don't, it'll be on the way with you to you with the link of this recording. So Jesus said, now you know I take a politically neutral and a religious neutral approach to my coaching. However, it's very spiritual, and sometimes I'll relate to something like this. Jesus said, the road is narrow, few will choose. Well, you can't say it any better than that. I relate to the program I had for the $1 Million Roundtable, where I was going to be speaking to a large audience, and I was going to give them I did already, I had this program, and in the program, I gave the audience a step-by-step procedure, a boundary. It was my food plan that if they implemented this, if they followed it, there's a guaranteed predictable result. But of course, the question is how many of this audience will actually change their habits and implement what I have just taught them. It's not that they didn't want to, it's just that they have a tough time being persistent enough and understand the process of how do they extinguish one habit and replace it with another habit, form a new habit. Well, that's what the big key is, and that's what the challenge is, and that's what the gist of this article is. So, according to USC social psychologist Wendy Wood, she did an interesting study. They called it the Take Five program, where they were the objective of the program was to get people to eat 5 fruits and vegetables a day. Now, you know, we don't do that. We have fruits with our breakfast, a very precise amount of fruit. We have fruit with our dinner until we get into maintenance, and then we add it into lunch as well. But anyway, on this program to eat 5 fruits and vegetables, the vegetables, by the way, we do it better than this. We have a prescribed boundary, a prescribed dosage of vegetables that we have for lunch and dinner. But anyway, in this mass of teaching to eat 5 fruits and vegetables a day, even though 35% of the people came away believing that they should be doing this, only 11% actually reported that they did it. It's not about intentions, it's about implementation. It's about overruling habitual behavior. Very difficult to do. So the question becomes, why is implementation so low? Well, you see this on a number of different levels. What needs to be done to enhance the results that you're looking for, that your org chart is looking for? And it's not going to be a mystery of what needs to be done. The mystery is going to be, how do you get people to execute and be the best versions of themselves on a moment by moment basis as they are executing and implementing what needs to be done? Well, let's look at this from a psychological perspective. We have 3 voices constantly competing for our attention. The first voice is the good voice. This is the goal-oriented voice that supports you in reaching your goals. So this is the voice that says, here's what I need to do. No negotiations, no back and forth. It's just, this is what I need to do to reach my goals. And you can expect to hear this voice about 25% of the time. Now think about that. I leave 75% of the time of the chatter going on. The second voice is the bad voice. This is the instant gratification, the instinctually driven voice that seeks comfort. And this is genetic. This is human survival, that we are seeking comfort. You have a feeling, and we want to instantly gratify that feeling by making it go away. If it's anxiety, how do we do that? We go to a refrigerator. Something that we are instinctively driven to avoid being uncomfortable and to seek the comfort. So the bad voice is constantly aligned with instant gratification, and that's about 35% of the time. Now, if you don't have some kind of an intervention, if you don't have some type of a program, 35% beats 25% every single time. In other words, your instincts will overrule your intentions all the time. It's the statement that I say is instincts trump intentions. You are instinctively driven for comfort. And so if the activity you need to implement is involving a new habit, or if it's involving being uncomfortable, or even just the perception of being uncomfortable, you're going to resist it because 35% beats 25%. And we know what happens is you avoid because you're seeking the comfort, you're seeking the easier activity, and then we don't know that we're avoiding because we justify the avoidance with rationalization. So the next voice of the third voices would be the voice that's linked to your vision. It's your purpose. This is your why voice. You're going to hear this 40% of the time. And if you think about this, if you add the 40% to the 25% of the good voice, the goal-oriented voice, that's 65%. That beats the instinctual 35% every single time. You've got a winning hand. What this means is developing the purpose for why you are doing what you do, why your initiative is, why what your project is. What's the purpose? So the problem here, as you can see, is that most people don't have this developed. They don't have their mission, their purpose, their vision, their connection to something bigger than themselves. So it's absent. If it's absent, then you're left to the good voice versus the bad voice. And the bad voice, the instinctual, comfort seeking, instant gratification voice, 35% beats 25% every time. However, if you develop your vision, your mission, and if you act on a purpose connected to the bigger picture, bigger than you are, then you have a ratio of 65% to 35%. That's a winning hand. The good news is one of our coaching commandments is what I can control, I must control. You can control this. You can control that you've oriented towards a purpose, towards a mission, towards a vision. So how do you connect to this? Well, you start by asking and answering these questions. Why bother? What am I building? How much is enough? What is the big picture? What is the benefit of having a blank? And so in an initiative where you want people to implement a new customer relations management system, a new lead system, a new system of operating as a business, well, the conscious mind and the cortex part of the brain agrees this is a good idea. However, the limbic area of the brain, the habitual area of the brain says this is different, this is new. There's going to be resistance. And so we need to align from a psychological perspective, we need to align these voices. What is the purpose of doing this? I like what Edward Deci says in his book, Why People Do Things. What is his book? Let me not butcher the title. I've got it right here. Why We Do What We Do by Edward Deci. He says people need to have a purpose and a reason, an understanding of how their actions matter to the big picture. So what's the benefit of? What will implementing this new system give you? And then you take it further. What will that result or that benefit give you? So here's the formula. The feature and the benefit, and then they ask is, what will having the benefit give you? So if it's my wellness program, the feature is losing weight by following a precise food plan. The benefit is you're going to have better health, you're going to have more energy, you'll have more clarity. Then ask, what will having better health, more clarity, more energy give you? And it's going to give you the ability to be more productive. What will being more productive give you? Well, that's going to enable you to reach your goals, to earn your bonuses, to make more money. What will making more money? What will all of that give you? Well, you'll be able to have more freedom to spend time with your family. What will spending more time with your family give you? Well, it's going to give you the love, and it's going to give you time to share more of you with your family. And so what you've now done is you linked your habit to the love of your family. Now that's a limbic area of the brain connection. Now that is pretty exciting. We can do something with that. And so I'll grant that let's look more of the science. And the science says very clearly that there's three different mindsets that we will be going through in order to develop a new habit. So unbearable, uncomfortable, and unstoppable. So let's look at that in a little bit more detail. And so here we go. Now this gets into a bit of the science that we're talking about. And if you look at this, much of our daily lives are taken up by habits that we formed over a lifetime. This is what a brain does. Our brain is an energy conservation. It's as you can see right here. Our brain is genetically designed to conserve energy. So we find patterns and behavior that allow us to take the actions to reach our goals, and then we repeat what works. And when these actions are repeated, we form associations between cues and responses. I wake up in the morning and I get into my car. There is no thought whatsoever. I don't even think about which direction I'm turning, and I wind up at the gym. Now, this is a non-conscious response. This is evolution. This is freeing my mind up to be able to look out and scan for danger, scan for the lion that's trying to kill me, but in this case, scan for other traffic or pedestrians. And so it frees us up. I don't have to think about and pay attention to an already wired in behavior. Now, that's a habit. Many times I will start out and not be thinking and make a wrong turn because I'm not going to the gym, I'm going somewhere else, but I already have this habitual pattern wired in. And so if you look at this, as humans, we have limited perceptual bandwidth. So since our perceptual abilities are so limited, we are genetically coded, we're wired to form neural networks that are easy to stimulate, easy to fire, that are automatic, that require very low energy. And just keep in mind that we are genetically coded to be negative, to be victims, to see obstacles, not opportunities. So everyone in your org chart that you have asked to have a role and to implement this this strategic initiative, whatever it might be, they are genetically coded not to see the positive opportunities to do that. They're genetically coded to see the obstacles, to focus on the obstacles, and to retreat from action in lieu of the focus on the obstacles, and to use that as an excuse and to see this as a reason why certain things can't get done. Oh, it's a victim mindset, it's a blaming mindset, and it's exactly where we need to be. It's exactly where we should be. It's exactly where human genetic coding has put us, unless there is an intervention. And so you can see with this example that the genetic coding to be negative, to look up, see this, and run away before we are consciously realizing that, well, this is what we're responding to. So we are genetically coded to respond negatively first. The conscious interpretation catches up. So anyway, let's look at the brain, because all behavior is brain driven. All initiatives, all results, everything starts with the human brain. So the outer cortex, this is the part of the brain that analyzes, that reasons. This is your planning area. This is your intentions. This is also referred to as your will. The willpower occurs in the orbital frontal cortex, right there. This is the part of the brain that stops you, interrupts you, inhibits you, and has you make a choice, a forced choice. Only problem with that is it takes a lot of energy to do that. You're not likely to frequently use this area of the brain. More likely, you're going to be instinctively driven, habitually driven by the limbic area of the brain. The limbic area is the emotional part of the brain, and this is the part that overrides your intentions. It's the part that's automatic, and then the brainstem, just as a reference, is your autonomic nervous system, breathing, heart rate, etc. And so we constantly have cortical limbic loops. This is what you intend to do. This is what you plan to do. This is really how you feel about doing it. And if your scan is if it's linked to pain, you'll instinctively be driven to avoid doing it and then to justify the avoidance with rationalization. This is the operational system of the human being. Now I want to show you three things that I mentioned previously. When you are looking to create a new habit, to create a new behavior, it at first looks to be unbearable. So it's unbearable to use our food plan. You want me to give up flour and sugar? You want me to give up pasta? My friend Steve Mariucci says, I'm Italian. I can't do that. It looks like it's unbearable. Well, you have this dense bundle of neurons that is a well-worn road. This is a neurological network for particular habits. They all look like this. So when you want to get something done, when you want to execute something that's new and different, it's going to go through this first stage, which is unbearable. However, if you're driven by your purpose and a connection to a higher vision, so there's two necessary ingredients to get out of the unbearable stage and get into the unstoppable stage. And that is one is to be driven by your purpose, a connection to something bigger. And then secondly, to be having all of your activities housed in a context of specific weekly commitments and accountability. Accountability means you're expected to perform. Somebody is going to check in on you, with you, about the specifics of what you declared you're going to do, and there's a consequence for non-performance. So more about that later. But anyway, when you first start, it appears to be unbearable. This is what that reference is. You have a conflicting habitual pattern that's very strong, very easy to fire off. So what do? Well, what we want to do is, by having the specific commitments to the activities and by being connected to a purpose, now what we do is we start to get action, and that takes us to the uncomfortable stage. The uncomfortable stage is when you are in action and you're forming a new neurological pattern. By taking the action, you are going to atrophy this and form a new neurological pattern. If you don't use this, and if this doesn't continue to fire, it's going to atrophy. It's one of the principles of the human brain called synaptic pruning. The brain doesn't like waste. The brain wants to conserve space and energy. So anything that's not used, it's going to shrivel up and then get reabsorbed into the brain. And so when you're developing a new neurological connection, it seems to be uncomfortable. Now, this is where you need to practice the Buddhist philosophy of using your will to overcome selfish desire. This is the orbital frontal cortex. You maintain the behavior purposefully. Requires a lot of energy until you get this network developed. You get this network developed the same way you developed the previous habit, by repetition, by accountability, by constantly purposefully doing these things. And once you get that network developed, you become absolutely unstoppable. So here's unbearable. It all has to do with brain development. Unbearable, uncomfortable, unstoppable. Unstoppable means that you've now developed this habit. It's easy to fire. It's what's called myelinated. And this is very, very exciting, because this means you're going to have a new behavior. And a part of this being driven by your purpose, I want to relate to the call that we had on July 28th in the daybook, the Davies Daybook. So let me open up that page. And this is about operating from your stand. And operating from your stand, if you look at this, let's just review a couple of things. Here I'm talking about the story of Malala Yousafzai. Go ahead, pronounce her name. Anyway, it's talking about the stand that she had is about educating young men and young boys and girls. I mean, it's about education. And the Taliban didn't want education, so she took a stand. Even though she was shot and the Taliban tried to kill her, she survived. And if you look at this, to declare a stand means to declare a position, to hold firm against something or someone. Now, to declare a position, to hold firm. So, for example, let's take this and easily use this, apply to getting up early in the morning. What's my stand? What's my purpose? What's the why bother? What's the benefit? Well, if I get up early in the morning, I'll start my day off with exercise. Every day is a better day when I started off with a workout. That's some theory, but what's the purpose? What's the stand? The stand is I put my health first. I practice a routine of excellence. A routine of excellence says it's wasting time to hit the snooze, it's wasting time to sleep in, that there's a very high correlation between being very, very successful and being in an exercise and fitness program. My stand is I am committed to excellence. As a part of this stand, I get up early and I go work out. It doesn't make a difference what I feel like doing. Remember, we've had a conversation in the past about your identity, your feelings and your actions, or identity, actions, and feelings. Well, it's your commitment to your stand, and then you take the action, and then that drives your feelings. But most people are driven from feelings, action, identity. They just live their lives in resignation. So the stand means to declare a position and to hold firm against something or someone, and that something or someone is yourself, is your instant gratification internal dialogue. And so if you just declare what this purpose is, what your stand is, what's your stand for this year? What is your stand? What is the purpose? What is the mission? Why bother? If you add that to specific commitments and add that to accountability, now you're going to dissolve the current habits that doesn't support you. You're going to build the new habits. You just need to, first of all, have the want to, and then you persist through this stage, through uncomfortable into unstoppable. It's very exciting to be unstoppable. So review that. And through persistence and conscious repetition, you will eventually populate your neurons, and you'll make the behavior that might start off as a struggle, you will make the new behavior easy and a habit. So it takes inhibition, it takes a purpose, it takes a plan, it takes a commitment of being a part of the bigger picture, a stand, and then you develop the habit. Now, this is from a single neuron capacity below, and I apply this to this is any kind of a habit. I have a garbage can on the left side of my desk. It was on the right side. I used to have a 3-drawer cabinet over on the left side, and because of the configuration of my desk, I couldn't open the bottom drawer, so I only had 2 operating drawers, and I had the garbage can on the right side. So I would get the stimulus, which would be to throw something away, and my garbage can was on the right side, so the automatic wired-in response was turn to the right and throw it away. Then I moved it. I moved the 3-drawer chest. I moved that over to the left. Excuse me, I moved that over to the right where I had access to all 3 drawers, and I moved my garbage can to the left. So now I would get the stimulus to throw something away. I would turn to the right to throw it away, and then I become conscious, and I would realize, wait a minute, I moved it to the left. So the stimulus to throw something away means I turn to the left now, and I start to wire in a new neuron. And this wasn't there. And with repetition, with conscious intervention and repetition, I strengthen that neurological network. Here I'm showing you one cell. Here I'm showing you multiple cells that are sending extensions of their axons into the outer cortex. So what I have is perhaps in the limbic area of the brain, I have the outer cortex, I have the hippocampus, which is memory involved. The brain is a distributed, interconnected network. And so you can see that I'm developing a new response to the old stimulus, and the old response will atrophy. I use this with respond to frustration with fascination. Something happens, this is the stimulus, and the response is to get frustrated, to get angry, to have the 3 R's, resistance, resentment, revenge. Well, I use my will to change my behavior, to rewire my brain. How do I do this? I make a commitment to it. I'm held accountable to it until it becomes a habit. I respond to frustration with fascination. You can see I have a new response that I'm starting to wire in. And eventually, through conscious repetition, through the declaration that I'm doing this, through being held accountable to do it, something specifically, I wire this in and I atrophy and dissolve the old response. So eventually, all I will have is something happens, I respond to frustration with fascination. I respond with fascination. And so I've wired it in, I change behaviors no matter what the intended behavior is, you can form new habits. So when I say, and by the way, what I've just shown you is called brain plasticity. When I say you have far more capacity to create the circumstances, the events in your life than you are aware of, I have just shown you from a psychological perspective and from a scientific neurological perspective, I've just shown you why that is true. So I say, be a student of human behavior. Be a student, understand the concept of brain plasticity, have faith in the process, use our program. What are the tools of our program? We wake up in the morning, we read a page that day of the Davies Day book. We meditate 5 to 10 minutes. We precisely plan every week, and you have a coach. So that's our program. Now you'll have 65% of your mind power. It is the good voice of your goal-oriented voice, and then you have the mission, the purpose, the stand driving you, and that's a winning hand every single time. So feel free to share this with anyone that you like, and thanks for listening. Talk to you on the next call.